Hey guys, I'm back. Got quite a bit of stuff done. I'll give you a little update on what we got going on and show you what we're going to do today. So everything over here is bolted down now. Sorry if you can't hear me. I got the AC running because it's like 70 degrees. Got everything bolted down. Got the exhaust done. Hopefully it'll work. We'll find out, I guess. And then I'll take you around over here. Here's our little baby muffler and stuff I got in. Got all the airbags in the rear put in. On this side, got alternator put in. Got the cover put on. Got the air tank mounted with all the fittings. So yeah, we're getting pretty close. What we're going to work on right now is gas tank. So I cleaned this thing up and I was just kind of messing around. I pulled the old fuel line off and drilled me and tapped me a hole into the tank here for a return line, because I am going to run the electric pump, and that's right where I'm going to mount it. It's right there. And of course the fuel tank, it sits right in here. Oops. The fuel tank sits right in here. And I've got the shield and all that stuff that goes on it. Now I tried to clean this thing out the best I could, and it's still pretty nasty. I mean, it'll probably be alright, but I'll definitely run some good gas in it, and we may change the fuel filter once or twice in between. I went ahead and put oil in the engine. That's all good to go, and bolted the engine down. So motor's all bolted down. Exhaust is pretty much done. Chain is on and tight. Got the belt. Got the pulley bolts. Everything's done on that aspect. Just have to do throttle cable, and we got to figure out our forward reverse shifter. After that, or some of that, we're gonna do, you know, the other stuff, wiring and all that stuff, and I'll give you guys a view of me doing the wiring. I wouldn't say that I'm the best at wiring, but I'm very anal about doing wiring. I won't use anything but heat shrink connectors and stuff like that, heat shrink solder connectors, and yeah, I'm real picky. I do a lot of zip ties. I don't know, I'm picky. But anyways, what I'm going to work on is getting this thing. I'm going to put a cutoff in this line, and I'm going to run a fuel filter in this line. But this line is going to adapt down to this line, because this line is actually what fits the carburetor itself, and then we have to route all that stuff around to where it won't get into anything, and, you know, zip tie it up out of the way and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to take and stick this up in the golf cart where it needs to go, and see about how long I need this hose. So let's do that real quick. Alright, so the way this works is this is going to go to our fuel pump, but I have to see exactly how this mounts and all that stuff, because I want it to look as clean as possible, if that makes sense. goes here. Do not have it hooked in, but that's good enough. That shows me where I need to be with everything. Now I can get creative and run this way funky and stuff, but I think I want to run it something like that. And to me, that'll keep that line shielded, and then we can run our fuel line straight to the pump right there. But we've got to put this and this in there. So I was looking, and I think about right here would be a good spot to put this, because I can zip tie that hose, and that's, you know, that's just your normal fuel shutoff line, is all that is. So with that being said, let's go ahead and cut it right there. Now, these things are made for hard line, but boy, they work great on this. So let's see, we want it cut right there. Boom. Now this flow, let's see, which way does this flow? That's on, it's off. So we want to put it in there like this. Like this. So that'll still sit in there nice. Like that. Oh, a little too hard on it. It'll be alright. So like that and like that. And then I'm going to cut it here and put our fuel line filter, inline filter in it. So right about there. That's where we want our filter. And these things do have a flow. If you don't know, it says in and out. So you want to put the in towards the tank and the out towards the pump. So now that we've got that, we know how to do this wire. Same with the fuel pump. It's got an arrow pointing which way it pulls fuel, so just like this is how it'll go. And what I want to do is, I don't want to leave too much, but I don't want to leave not enough, if that makes sense. So I'm going to cut it. I'll measure this to the fuel pump to about where I'm going to have it sitting, and I'm going to just kind of gouge it with my fingernail so I know. And then we're going to just cut her off clean right there. So with that cut off, pull our nipple off, giggity, and force our fuel line up on there. I don't want to do it too hard right now because I still got to go back and put all the clamps on. So right there is where our line starts. Now we've got to worry about how our line is going to go down and around. Now I don't think that there's anything that's going to obstruct with the actual mount of the golf cart on there, but that's going to be coming very soon. I have got to get that thing. This is going to come off of this table. This table's got to go, and we got to get this thing back on the ground because I've got to put that lid back on to run all my wiring and run all of the airlines, fuel, well, not really the fuel, but you know, the majority of all the other stuff, run all of our lines and lights and all that stuff. So yeah, we've definitely got to get the body back on this thing, but that body weighs roughly 200 pounds and I just don't think I can get it up there. And I don't know if the table will support it. But anyways, let me move it around to the side here and we'll figure out our fuel. So, we'll slide this one on here. And then we've got to figure out a way to route this. So, that is not going to be very fun or easy. So, let's see. Best way to route it. Best way to route it. Keep it away from everything. The original fuel line ran across right in the rear, but it was a steel line. So, I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe bring this down like this, and we can always drill some holes and put a zip tie in there to hold it. That ain't no big deal, but I want to try to keep it hidden, if that makes sense. Now I guess I could run it up there, but I would rather keep it back here. So So, all right, so my camera just decided to stop recording 2 times in a row. I don't know what its problem is, but anyways, let me show you what I got going on. I ran this one up here real quick. I wanted to see coming towards that way. I think our best course of action is probably going to be going underneath the engine plate and coming out on that side and maybe just running it close over there. But we got to remember, we got to keep room in the slack in this line because this thing airs up and down. So with that being said, I'm gonna pop the tank back out of it but leave my line up here and probably bolt that fuel pump down real quick. And just like that, it is now fixed. So I'm just going to thread that on down. Not real tight, but just enough. And then we got to mark and put us a bolt in on this side. So I got to find a small bolt to put in there. So let me do that. Alright guys, so hopefully you can see what I got going on. This one I'm going to come in from the outside, or the underneath, and come up and have it secured like that. So that'll work. So now I'm going to pull the fuel tank back out and we can see kind of what I'm thinking about doing for the fuel line. So right underneath here, I can bring this fuel line from that side straight across underneath here. And of course, just a few zip ties will take care of all of this. Hang on, I need both hands here. I miss my video girl. She decided she wanted to go stay another night, or stay the weekend with her mom. So Dad is without his video holder, camera holder, but it is what it is. I get it. She wants to go over there and play. But anyways, So we got that, and I think that if I run it right up like this, I know you probably can't see what the hell I'm doing, but if I run it over here and up like this, away from the exhaust that is right here, even though it's got a shield on it, I don't want to get it close to that exhaust. We might run it, may run it back over here and bring it up. I don't know. Let's see. Which it's actually a nice little spot right there in that frame. We could pop that right in there, just like that. Hey, almost like it's meant to be. Actually, I think that's where the factory line went. So, yeah, I'm gonna bring it up through here like this. And we're gonna leave quite a bit of slack in it, because I need to air this thing up and then see where we're at. So I think if I bring it up like that, then I can just run it up through this little zip tie that they got right there and around to the other side of the fuel pump. And that'll actually save us a lot of hose on the other end of the hose, like that other size hose. Because what I do, I don't have one. I have to go get one. I need a T fitting that is 15/16 to a quarter, I think. So I have to go get a T fitting that is 15/16 to a quarter so I can finish this fuel line. But I just wanted to get a rough, layout of how I wanted to do everything. So what I'm thinking, like I said, this will go here like we had it, and then we'll probably cut it off about right here, I'm guessing, right in there. That way it just kind of lays right in here, nice and tucked. And then we have to put an adapter in there. So I'm going to snip that right here. Boom. Bi-fuel line. And then we got to run one of these that is quarter to 5/16. So we'll run this in this zip tie hole. Put our piece in there, and then I'm going to leave quite a bit of slack here. Okay, and my camera has turned off yet again. I wonder if it has an update or something I need to do on it. It's really starting to piss me off. Anyways, I'm going to leave quite a bit of slack in this fuel line, so I'm going to cut it a little bit long, like this, until I figure out how much I need when the golf cart is aired up and aired down and all that good stuff, because I don't want it to, when it goes up and down, it's got to have movement. Same thing with the cables and all that stuff when we do it. Got to have the movement. So, I'll show you what I mean. So, that is maximum lift in the back. So as long as we got enough hose, and we've got more than enough, then I can zip tie that on both sides to where nothing will hit, if that makes sense. I just don't want to have a big problem. And it should be here tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow we will work on putting the airlines on, because I bought the air controller. So, and it is remote controlled. so I can air it up and down, front and back, with a remote. Pretty neat stuff. So if we come over here though and look, I'll show you guys. So we got plenty of room that I can, you know, still got plenty of room to put that line up and keep it up here out of the way of the exhaust and all that stuff, and it won't bind, which I'll probably run that fuel line underneath that cable and all that stuff. It's stuck up there for right now. So nothing permanent, just, you know, getting everything filled out, and that should give us plenty of room. Man, it is pouring outside. Anyways, that'll give us plenty of room to get our stuff in there like we need to. So that's about all I got for tonight. Tomorrow we'll get back out here and we'll hit it hard once I get the other parts in. So I'll see you guys in the morning. Hey guys, back out here today. It is not the next day, it is a few days later because I just had life things to do. Although yesterday I came out here and I didn't do a video on any of it, but I got some things done and I'm gonna spin you guys around so you can see it. All right guys, are you ready? Spin around, see it? This is what we got done. Oh man, look at that. Got it off the table. Got the table up there. And we got the seat put back on it and the body. It's all in one thing. These things, let me tell you, that thing is heavy. That thing, I bet that thing weighs 150, 200 pounds. It was a struggle to get back in here, and thank goodness for the old chain hoist there, because that's what I used and ran a chain through the arms on this thing and picked it up. Now it's bolted back on. This thing is super heavy. But there we go. So everything is in. I did manage to finish the fuel lines. I've got to go back and obviously I got to put some hose clamps on in some spots, and down here I've got to run a T between that line and run this line into it, because that'll be our return line. I don't have a T fitting. It may be here today. If it is, we'll get that installed. If not, then I'll get it installed as soon as it gets here. So I did get some other stuff in. Let me go around this way because my cord is not long enough. Hang on. This thing's kind of taking up some of my shop space where it's back on the ground. But here's what we got. All of this stuff. So this is our steering wheel adapter, and that'll put us being able to use any kind of steering wheel because it's got all these different bolt patterns. So we can get rid of the factory steering wheel. Excuse me. Now this is our airbag valve. So I was just playing around with it. So these on the ends, I was just trying to see, those are exhaust and that's in on both sides. Now essentially this thing it's supposed to be 2 valves, but to me it looks like it's 4 valves. I don't know, we'll find out. So gosh, over here these are to your gauges, and I've got the gauge right here, and I don't know if you can see it in there, but it is actually 3 separate gauges, so we can check our front, rear, and tank pressure. So what that means is this is your front and rear tank pressure. Okay, these are your front and rear bags, so these will go to your bags. Then this will be air in, and these are exhaust. Now the reason I stuck these in there is that sometimes helps quieten it down, but also it helps with making it slower coming down, because you don't want this thing to slam. You want it to just kind of float to the ground, not slam down. Because when you have it slammed down, then you know, it's going to jar the piss out of you, plus you're going to end up breaking something. So, with that, I did get all of the fittings. Let me sit down here. So I did get all the fittings put in. And these here, these will screw into the top of this to adapt it. So our tank pressure will screw into the top of this. Then this will be our tank out. So that tank out will come out, it'll split into two, and then it'll go into the valve box that I got over there. Then this is the other part of it. This is the controller. A lot of people, especially if you're going to drive it on the road and stuff like that, they would never run a remote control setup, and if they would, they'd spend quite a bit of money on it. This one had decent reviews on it, but it's nothing, you know, extravagant. So here's your controller, 1 through 6. So from what I was reading on the thing is like, this is front up, front down, rear up, rear down, and then it's all front up, all front down, you know, back and forth. I have to figure it all out, play with it. So this is our wiring harness. This plugs into the box, and then you got positive and negative that'll hook to power. And then all of this is just gauge wiring. This plugs into every one of those sensors and then plugs into the back of the gauge. So we got to find a place to mount this gauge, and we got to find a place to put our push button start and a couple other things. So I did clean up what I call the instrument panel, I guess is what you want to call it, but it's what goes around the steering column. And somebody had cut out this opening to run a light switch, which, you know, that's fine. We're going to probably put something else there. That was for your choke, and then that was for your ignition switch. So not a lot of room to run anything else, but I'm thinking if I cut this bigger, I could put the ignition switch in here or here, either way, and then I could just run a smaller hole for the rest of it later. This thing's in kind of rough shape, but it's really in good shape, to be honest. These things are extremely hard to find. Parts for this thing, period, are extremely hard to find. With that being said, I think what we're going to do is I've got to start on the wiring, and I've got to start on the air ride. So I think what I want to do is on the airbags, I've got straight fittings on it. I think we're going to pull those straight fittings out and run elbow fittings. Now I still have 2 brackets that are laying here someplace that actually mount across the top of this that holds the body in, so we're going to have to trim them brackets just a little bit so they'll fit over top of our airbag brackets. So that, and then I've got another part here that I've got to weld back onto that steering column that actually holds this in place. It actually bolts right there. And the reason I cut it off was I was trying to fit a different front end on this thing and then realized that it was going to be more work than I wanted to do. So now we're just going to put it back to the way it was. So I guess let's start on the front and go ahead and unscrew these air fittings and put the elbows in it. And then we can start figuring out how and where we want to run our air lines. The really nice thing about these air lines is they are push to connect. So that just means you push in and pull and they come right out. So then I'm just going to use an adjustable wrench. You can use whatever you want. And these just unthread right out of the top of the bags. And I'm hoping I got enough room to run the elbows. If not, we'll run these back in it. But I really need to pull them out so I can Teflon them. They come with Teflon on it, but I always add extra. Here's our elbow, and it's pretty much exactly the same as the straight. It just is an elbow. Of course, I dropped it. So instead of being straight up, it's a 90. So let's see if they'll pass everything and go in there. I think they will, but I might have to use a small wrench to get them in there. Now, like I said, I always add extra Teflon, and the only Teflon tape that I'll use is Blue Monster. I hope you guys can see that, but Blue Monster is the absolute best Teflon tape I have ever found. Now, a lot of guys, they'll use pipe dope or whatever to put this stuff in, and it's your preference, whatever. But I just like good old Teflon. So we're just going to take some and follow the thread. You don't need much. Just around it one good time. Like that. Rip her off. Get your threads good. Get all of it in there. Make sure your hole's open. Just like that. And then we're going to thread it in there as far as we can get it with by hand. Okay, so I just threw 2 zip ties on that for now, just to kind of hold it so we can see where we want this at. I cut this line to where I think it'll be about right, I hope, because we got to go all the way. We got to go from up there to where this box is, because that's where I'm going to mount the thing at. So I jacked the front of it up so I can get underneath it here. And with that being said, I'm going to turn this wheel just a little, and this line should go right down behind here and into this little hole. And that's where all your ignition wiring and all that stuff, it runs through that same spot. It's like a little cutout. So we got it started. Just gonna pull it through. Got that routed underneath, and she comes up right here. And conveniently, I've got those little tabs that this will just run in. Of course, I'll zip tie it too, just for extra security. So I'm gonna bend that tab to hold this. Just enough, and this one, just enough. So that'll put us pretty dang close to where we need to be on our airbag. or airline. I'm sorry. So I'm going to leave that length for now. We're going to go ahead and change out the rear bag fittings to the elbows and get that ran over here, because I think what's happening right now is when you close that lid, I think that's kind of bending down like this. And yeah, you don't want that, because that seat sits on top of that. So let's go ahead and get them changed out. Now all that's going to do is be ran right to the box that's going to be right here. So easy peasy. We'll go ahead and, while I'm here, I'll go ahead and throw a zip tie around it right in here, hold it, because we don't want it moving. So controller put back up, and it works up and down. So there's all the way down, and then here's all the way up. As you can see, all that stuff moves a lot. So we're going to lift it up like this. That's way up in the air. That's probably higher than the factory would ever have it in the rear. And you won't drive it there because that's way too much air pressure in the bags. I mean, you could essentially ride it there, but you want it to be a softer ride, not bouncing you to death. So, okay, so I went ahead and Tefloned this whole thing. Got it put together. And about right there, I think, is where I want it to sit at. So, it came with screws, and they're pretty freaking long. Hopefully they'll work. So what I'll do is drill holes, and then I'll mount it from the bottom side up. So I'm gonna go find me a drill bit that fits those. All right, got our drill bit, got our screws, and this fits perfect. So I'm just gonna zip our first hole. Okay, so I got that all bolted down. She's good to go. Now I got to find a place to mount this one. Stuff installed. Airlines are hooked up. Air compressor hooked to tank. This is our pressure switch that you run in between, and we've got to run a relay. Yeah, I'm gonna just start zipping on through some of this wiring, and you guys can watch, and we'll see what we come up with. Alright guys, so I got a little bit more of that done, a little of the wiring done. Check it out. Got it all plumbed, got our positive cable, negative cable. I ran it to the frame down there with a big bolt. You can see it. And then I'll ground the motor also to that, and then also from there to the battery. I was going to go ahead and wire up my valves, which is this one, these 2 wires, but I have plenty of black wire, but I have no red. As you can see, I am out of red. So I ordered some wire, and it'll be here in a couple days, and I'll go ahead and do it. But what I figured we were going to do now, I can't really do nothing else till I get some wire, unfortunately. So I don't feel like going to the store. The store for me is a 20-mile drive. I live in the boonies, so I'm gonna go ahead and weld this dash bar back in that I cut out like an idiot. So I've got it lined up in there. You can see where I cut it off. So I've got it lined back up in there where it needs to be, and I'm gonna go ahead and weld it back in. I did do some playing around a minute ago and got our dash looking pretty decent, I think. So there's our gauge, there's our start stop button, and then of course that's supposed to be for the choke cable, and we might leave it there, but I've got to drill an extra hole or two for accessories. What I want to run is a separate kill switch on this, just for emergency, like a toggle switch that you can reach up and flip to cut off and ground the motor out, so it'll, you know, shut off. That way you don't have to go through the whole button. But you can use the button probably, but I'm gonna run an extra wire just to, you know, precautionary. So yeah, and then we're gonna work on getting the bars cut out to put back on and bolt them on, because I need to set the front end back on this thing so I can see how everything's gonna line up. And then we need to start on, once I get the wiring and stuff done, we're gonna start on the body work. Now this stuff is super thin, so I gotta be easy. So I got that done. As you can see, it's welded back into place. And all that does is hold our dash, and you put 2 screws in it. And yeah, we should be good to go. Well, I'm gonna dig out these brackets wherever they might be, and we're gonna see what we have to do to modify them to make them fit. Okay, so there is our bumper horns, or body horns, whatever you want to call them. I guess they're body horns, because essentially the body sits on top of this, and then you bolt it here, 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 you know, so on. So the problem is where I've added these bags, we're gonna have to trim this out. So I'm just gonna get a marker, or probably a paint pen, and mark out squares on each one of these, and just take the Chinese death wheel and just zip them off there. Got them cut out. Did it off camera so you didn't have to sit there and be bored with me cutting those out. Now I gotta go and find all the bolts and hardware and bolt those back in. Some bolts, I think these are the right bolts, and I don't think on the top, I don't think I put a bolt in here until the actual thing is on. I think you just put these bolts in, and then a bolt goes in here. I'll have to go check. We'll find out here in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and put these in. So those are on there, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab the front end, and we're gonna stick it on there and see what everything looks like. Of course, I can't fully put it on there yet until I do all the wiring and all that stuff, but I gotta have an idea of where everything sits at, if that makes any sense. not fun to get to put back on. Hey. Yeah. Okay, so installed. Only thing is I don't know what I'm gonna do to fix this thing. It is, man, it's in rough shape. Wish I could find one that was better. This thing is, I don't know. I'm gonna try fixing it. We'll see what happens, I guess. But it is pretty bad. You probably can't tell on the videos, but man, that thing is wavy. And these big bubbles, I don't know what happened to cause them bubbles. The only thing I can think of is this thing must have got extremely hot, like somebody stuck it in front of a heater or something, because the rest of it's in pretty good shape except for that. So I don't know. That is what she'll look like put back together, other than, you know, paint and body work. And gotta put the dash in it, and we'll see what that looks like. And I gotta finish doing some wiring, and a lot of this stuff I'll do, and you know, you'll just see after, because man, it's hours upon hours of running wire, solder, just tons and tons and hours of doing that. So with that being said, we've got, or I think I've got quite a bit done. Got all the air lines done. Fuel lines are pretty much done. I ran out of hose clamps, so they're on the way. Got the T for that. Then I got to start wiring. I got to finish wiring the starter, and I'm waiting on little small stuff. So I guess since we got that put on, and we got tank hooked, we got fuse box hooked, I've got terminals to put on here. I've got to get my red wire, and this is going to be our frame ground right here. So, and I'll run another wire from here to probably the engine mount over here to the actual engine case. That way the engine's grounded, the motor is grounded to everything is grounded. So you'll have a line running from battery ground to the frame, from that frame to the motor, and that way if I want to run a ground up here and I don't feel like running it all the way back here, I can. That way everything is grounded. So with that being said, I will probably continue to work on some of this wiring. I can't do a lot. I need to make some wiring, some terminals like this. These are 4 gauge, that's plenty enough. I mean, this is the wire that they ran for the air compressor, so I mean, it's not like it, you know, I'll do overkill on everything. But well guys, got a lot done. It won't be too long before we're starting this thing up. Get to see what it sounds like, and all that good stuff. Hopefully everything works, because this thing is, you know, it's not like, hey, this is how this should be. No, we completely built everything with some parts that we bought, but mainly the engine mount and all that stuff is just modified. So hopefully it's very soon, guys, we'll get this thing running. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, leave a comment. Love you guys. Peace.